In the United States, homeownership has long been the foundation for building generational wealth.
But not for everyone. Black Americans have been denied equal access to the housing market, and the consequences continue to be staggering. White families hold nearly 10 times the wealth of black families, much of it in the form of home ownership.
Access to homeownership changed radically during the Great Depression. In 1935, the Federal Housing Act laid the foundation for home purchases by providing access to low-interest, government-backed loans.
Administration of FHA programs, however, ensured that many black families were barred from procuring both home loans and insurance. For the first 35 years of the program, only about 2% of the $120 billion in FHA loans went to non-white families.
The Homeowners Loan Corporation played a significant role in creating these disparities by classifying neighborhoods based on perceived risk and using racial makeup as a deciding factor. Loans for properties in majority black neighborhoods were thus deemed risky and were generally denied. This process would later be known as redlining.
The establishment of the Federal National Mortgage Association in 1938 reinforced this exclusion by purchasing and securitizing only those mortgages that adhered to racially discriminatory lending policies and only for properties not located within redline neighborhoods.
How cool is that? My grandfather bought his home just a few blocks away from your grandfather's place. He used benefits from the GI Bill to make the down payment.
Interesting. My grandfather was denied GI Bill benefits and had to pay cash. He lived in this red section.
Our house is in the green section. What does that mean?
It meant that houses located in blue or green areas of the Homeowners Loan Corporation maps would eventually be worth many times more than similar properties located in redlined areas. Meanwhile, even those black families who could afford to pay cash or build their own homes faced new obstacles. Racist deed covenants, homeowner association bylaws, and developer loan agreements prevented black Americans from moving into predominantly white neighborhoods.
Unscrupulous realtors began convincing white families that their neighborhoods would soon be in decline. Known as blockbusters, they would buy white-owned properties at a discount, then sell them to black families at a premium, offering installment contracts instead of mortgages.
Installment contracts allowed a blockbuster to legally retain ownership of the home until the debt was paid in full. If the buyer missed a payment, the home could be foreclosed upon and sold in the same manner to another unsuspecting black family.
Another legal trap? Heirs property law.
This homestead has been in my family since Reconstruction. How is it being auctioned off?
Because it's now classified as heirs property. Your grandfather didn't leave a will. Without it, all of his descendants inherited the property together. A developer bought out your cousin's share and is now forcing the sale of the property.
Up to a third of all black-owned property in the South is currently subject to heirs property law, with over $1 billion of intergenerational wealth at risk.
In 1968, after decades of civil rights protests and lobbying by the NAACP and others, the Fair Housing Act was passed, outlawing overt discrimination in housing. While the passage of this bill was critical, it did little to reverse pre-existing conditions, and neighborhoods across the country continue to experience the long-term effects of segregation.
Even with legal protections, new forms of reverse exclusion arose. In 2008, during the subprime mortgage crisis, predatory lending and credit bias accounted for a huge number of homes lost in black neighborhoods.
Housing disparities persist. Appraisals of black-owned homes are consistently undervalued. Selective reassessment in black neighborhoods inflates property taxes, and property theft through the acquisition of unpaid tax liens continues to plague black communities.
I always thought the playing field was level. But it seems like the wealth gap has nothing to do with how hard our grandfathers worked.
You inherited an economic system designed to benefit you. Imagine where I would be if my grandparents had been able to buy a home in your neighborhood.
The racial wealth gap is not an accident. It is an engineered outcome of racist housing policy.
The current movement for housing repair is about securing economic justice, restoring stolen wealth, correcting laws that suppress Black economic development, and ensuring that future generations have the opportunities our ancestors were denied.